The first ship didn't make a sound. It simply appeared. One moment, the stars glittered peacefully above Earth. The next, they were swallowed by a jagged, obsidian monolith that hovered over New York City like a judgmental god. Then came the others. 13 Dominion-class warships, each the size of a continent, slipped into orbit like knives into flesh. Cities worldwide looked up and saw their future burn into view. No warning. No fanfare. Just annihilation on standby. At precisely 3:13 Universal Time Coordinated, they spoke. The sky turned violet as their message bled into every frequency, televisions, radios, even the thoughts of those who slept. The voice was mechanical, multilayered, like it had been synthesized from screams. Earthborn. You are unclaimed. You are vulnerable. You are obsolete. We are the Dominion of Cathal. You will kneel or you will vanish. No pause. No negotiation. 12 seconds later, Rio de Janeiro disappeared in a white flare that melted the Atlantic around it. Shanghai was hit with a virus that turned its people into screaming glass statues. Paris was sprayed with flesh-dripping mycotoxins, spores devouring humanity down to the bone. The Dominion didn't believe in first impressions. They believed in obedience through horror. Governments collapsed into chaos. Military commanders tripped over each other, trying to authorize retaliation that wouldn't matter. Satellite defense systems scrambled to target the fleet, only to be hacked and turned inward. Nukes aimed at their own launch facilities. In Washington, an emergency summit was held in a bunker 300 feet below ground. Everyone talked over each other, generals, diplomats, scientists. Every word meant nothing. And above Manhattan, the flagship Kitarak descended through the clouds, trailing purple fire. Its hull was alive, veins of chitin and chrome pulsing like a heart, shrieking alien war hymns in a frequency only dogs could hear. Times Square emptied in seconds. Holograms blinked out. Lights shut down. The air went still. And then, something dropped from the ship. A thud like a meteor. 7 tons of alien flesh encased in armor the color of dried blood. It stood 20 feet tall. 4 legs. 2 arms. 1 head with no face, just a mass of shifting eyes. The Enforcer-class unit activated its weapon, a plasma scythe the size of a city bus, forged from collapsing suns. It said nothing. It carved through a NYPD drone like butter, then vaporized the SWAT response team in a single swing. Civilians screamed. Others didn't. They were already ash. The Dominion was making a statement. They thought Earth would get the message. They didn't expect him. The rooftop door slammed open with a metallic clang that echoed across the corpse-strewn street. At first, people thought it was another Cathal unit. But what stepped out wasn't alien. He was human. Barely. Beautiful like a weapon. Sharp like vengeance. Riven Vale. He walked barefoot across broken glass like it didn't matter. His cropped combat top clung to his blood-spattered torso, stitched with makeshift straps and burn holes. His eyes were lined in smeared eyeliner. He was soaked from the rain, but he looked like he'd earned it, like the storm followed him. 1 boot on. 1 boot off. Because the other had been lost 3 blocks back when he'd used it to crush the skull of a Dominion scout. He lit a cigarette off a still-burning corpse, took 1 drag, then tossed it into the puddle of melted bone. No one moved. Not the civilians hiding behind shattered cars. Not the Enforcer. Not even the air. Riven looked up at the warship hovering above the skyline, then at the Enforcer unit now watching him. His lips curled into a smack, blood on his teeth. You picked the wrong F***ing planet. The Enforcer read him as non-threat. Human. Substandard. Not worthy of auto-engagement protocol. That was its first mistake. Riven moved before the algorithm could update. He dashed forward. No hesitation, no wasted motion, just lethal velocity. The Enforcer's sidearm moved to intercept, but Riven was already sliding beneath its legs, a flicker of motion in a rain-soaked blow. His hand gripped something strapped to his thigh, a twin-blade set forged from alien bone and plasma-scrap titanium. The vibra blades hissed to life. With a savage arc, he slashed both of the Enforcer's rear tendons. The sound was like meat being torn from bone, but amplified, monstrous. The machine beast stumbled, its mass crashing into the pavement. But Riven wasn't done. He vaulted onto its back, jammed 1 blade into the base of its skull, and screamed as he ripped it downward. splitting metal, flesh, and circuitry in one brutal motion. Sparks erupted. Hydraulic fluid sprayed in thick black arcs. The creature thrashed, then spasmed, then went still. Silence. Then, drip, drip. Blood, alien and human, fell from Riven's blades as he stood atop the corpse like a victorious demon, panting through clenched teeth. Around him, the survivors just stared. Some sobbed. Some whispered. One man dropped to his knees, not in fear, but in awe. Riven hopped off the twitching body, crouched beside a Dominion limb still fizzing with residual plasma, and wiped his blades clean on its flesh. He looked up, eyes glowing faintly in the pale violet light. "I'm not here to save anyone," he said quietly, almost to himself. "But I'm not letting these freaks turn my planet into a parking lot." He moved fast after that. There were more of them. Scouts, drones, sentinels dropping from the mothership like hellspawn. But none of them lasted more than 10 seconds against Riven. He made violence look like art. Ducking under laser fire. Twisting through bullet streams. Vaulting across rubble with bloody grace. One moment he'd be carving a Dominion trooper in half with an axe made from an old stop sign. The next, he'd be flipping midi to stump another's head into the asphalt. It wasn't just killing. It was performance. People started filming. Streaming. The footage spread instantly, across cities, then continents. The world saw him, one lone twink covered in blood and glitter, standing in a street full of alien corpses, middle fingers raised to the sky. That's when the tag started trending. #TwinkReaper. By dawn, 50 Dominion units had been destroyed in Manhattan alone, all by one man. In the Cathal warship, command nodes began recalculating Earth's resistance models. Projections dropped from 0.3% chance of survival to 42.7%, all because of one unknown factor: subject Riven. The warlords were furious, intrigued, confused. They didn't understand humans. They especially didn't understand him. He wasn't military. He wasn't sanctioned. He wasn't part of any resistance, yet. He was a former rogue operative from a black-budget program that didn't officially exist, Lunar Blackline. A deep space assassination unit, composed of genetically enhanced covert agents trained in orbital infiltration, neural disruption, and exotic warfare. Riven Vale was their youngest, their deadliest, and the only one who walked away. No one knew why. But now, Earth's last hope wasn't a fleet. It wasn't a hero. It was a glitter-eyed psychopath with blood on his hands and a bone to pick with anything that thought it could rule him. And he had just gotten started. The Dominion underestimated him. It wasn't arrogance. It was programming. Their war AI didn't have a classification for a lone operator inflicting catastrophic losses on armored strike units using nothing but stolen gear, sharpened scrap, and an attitude soaked in blood and glitter. But Riven Vale didn't care about their logic. He cared about revenge. The moment he gutted that first enforcer, he switched into full Reaper mode, a kill state so deep only Blackline agents could reach it. It was instinct wrapped in memory, brutality polished by pain. His heart rate slowed. His thoughts sharpened. The world became targets and threats. And he moved. At 4:23, he hijacked a dead scout's neural spike, plugged it into his spine with a wince and a snarl, and used its kill code to triangulate every Dominion unit within a 5-mile radius. 17 contacts. 10 armored. 2 elite. 1 labeled Predator class. Riven grinned. Let's see what those claws do. He started with the closest pack, 4 Dominion shock marines patrolling 8th Avenue. Each stood over 7 feet tall, plated in biomechanical armor, and bristling with spine-mounted dart guns. They stalked like wolves, moving in sync, scanning for life signs to extinguish. They didn't see him coming. He dropped from a fire escape like a vengeful comet, landing feet first on one marine's shoulders, shattering its spine through the armor. Before the others could turn, he already had a pipe bomb rigged with Zenite shrapnel shoved into the downed trooper's chest cavity. Boom! The street turned into a fine red mist. The other two? One died with Riven's heel through its eye socket. The other tried to run. Riven caught it by the throat, dragged it back screaming in its alien gurgle, and slit its torso open like a fish. Purple innards steamed on the concrete. "You're not the first assholes to try enslaving this planet," he said to the corpse. "But you're definitely the ugliest." By 5 o'clock, The Dominion had reclassified him. Target Riven, threat level, Xenovirus T. Meaning, treat him like a biohazard. Engagement protocols were updated. Units were ordered to fire on sight. Sniper drones deployed from orbit. Hunter-killers were rerouted to New York. Didn't matter. Because Riven was already inside their command relay station, deep beneath a Dominion forward base under the old subway lines. And he was tearing it apart with a sledgehammer wrapped in electrified barbed wire. Sparks danced across his sweat-soaked skin as he screamed and smashed alien tech into slurry. Everything smelled like ozone, metal, and rage. He wired a field mine to the relay's quantum core, jammed an alien finger into the detonation trigger, and walked out just as the whole thing collapsed inward, sucking 20 tons of equipment into a singularity the size of a quarter. He didn't even flinch. The resistance hadn't officially formed yet. But they saw the footage. Everyone did. Clips of Riven butchering Dominion elites with scavenge blades, making them choke on their own weapons, or pulling off acrobatic kills that seemed physically impossible. In Hong Kong, a rogue Blackline survivor whispered, "He's alive," and picked up her rifle. In Johannesburg, a street gang watching Riven punch through armor on a cracked tablet started spray painting his name in neon green on every wall, Vale Walks. By 6:30, every black market, abandoned bunker, and forgotten militia knew the truth. One man was killing gods. And he wasn't stopping. At 7:12, the Predator class dropped. 10 feet tall. Insectoid armor. Energy blade arms. Cloaking field. Bone harvesting secondary mouth. Designed for one thing, eliminate Earth's most dangerous individual. It landed in Midtown, already hunting. Riven watched it through the scope of a plasma rifle he'd built from 2 broken Dominion carbines, duct tape, and spite. He let it get close. Then closer. Then whispered. Bang. The first shot burned through its camo. The second shot scorched its left arm. The third? He didn't fire it. He threw the entire rifle into its chest, charged it with an old reactor cell, and detonated it mid-E as he sprinted full speed into the blast. The explosion ripped through the air like a thunderclap. Riven came out smoking, blooded, grinning. The Predator staggered back, damaged but alive. All right, Riven spat blood. Let's do this the fun way. What followed was not a fight. It was a slaughter ballet. Riven was a blur, flipping, diving, kicking off walls, spinning around blade strikes like he'd choreographed the whole thing with death itself. The Predator struck faster than lightning, but Riven was faster, dodging by millimeters, always smiling. He lost a chunk of his shoulder. Didn't slow down. He broke its leg, tore off its cloaking node, and jammed it into its own face, frying its optics. Then, as it reeled, he straddled its chest and whispered something in a language no human should have known. The Predator froze, then exploded from the inside. He stood up, shaking off the blood like rain, eyes glowing silver for half a second. Your gods talk too much. 8 o'clock. Riven had killed 37 confirmed units, including 1 Predator and 2 elite warcasters. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't slept. He hadn't stopped smiling. The Dominion fleet tried to recalibrate. Orbital cannons locked on. A kill satellite powered up, preparing a localized Citikiller beam. Riven looked up at the sky, cracked his neck, and said, dead serious. Try me, bitches. It fired. Light crashed down in a 3-kilometer radius. Fire swallowed buildings. Metal melted. Civilians screamed. And Riven stood dead center, unscathed, because he triggered the Manhattan fault line 3 seconds earlier, causing a sudden tectonic shift that disrupted the beam's phase lock and redirected it, straight into a Dominion frigate overhead. That ship burned for 9 hours before it crashed into the Hudson. No one understood how he timed it. No one dared to ask. And then, he disappeared into the smoke again. Not retreating. Just hunting. The kill count wasn't just rising. It was becoming a message. You don't own Earth. You're not welcome here. And you picked the wrong twink to F***CK with. The Dominion had names for every threat they'd ever encountered. On the molten moons of Gorath, they catalogued a thunder beast that devoured tanks whole. On Varnes 3, they glassed a hive world after its queen consumed their fleet with psychic rage. On Azek Prime, they warred for 70 years against sentient hurricanes with venomous rain. But nothing prepared them for Riven Vale. Because he wasn't war. He was the answer to war. And now, across every Dominion channel, every command node, every battlefield AI, a single Earth phrase had been translated into their cursed tongue. Twink Reaper Protocol. Initiate Exterminatus level response. They wanted him gone. But Riven? He wanted to be seen. He broadcasted live from the corpse of a Dominion war bishop. The feed was hijacked. No human signal source. Just a camera, cracked and jury-rigged, panning across a battlefield filled with twitching alien carcasses, their blood smoking in the heat. Burned banners. Broken weaponry. A mountain of severed Dominion heads stacked in a spiral. Then Riven stepped into frame. Topless. Scarred. Glitter smeared across his cheek like war paint. He wore a necklace of severed Cathal eyes and held a Dominion elite's heart in one hand, still beating. His voice was low. Calm. Too calm. I told you to leave. He dropped the heart. Stepped on it. Squish. Now I'm going to climb your ship and slit your gods open. He smiled. No joy in it. Just teeth. See you soon. The screen cut to black. Then fled crimson with 3 words in all languages. Vale walks Earth. The resistance, until that moment, had been scattered survivors. Old paramilitaries. Doomsday preppers. Ex-military. Hackers. Broken rebels. Bunkers full of anger and guns, waiting for a reason to matter. Now they had a banner. In New Mexico, a squad of ex-Blackline rogues unearthed long-sealed weapons and branded themselves glitter daggers. In Tokyo, a street gang rebranded as the Valorline and raided a Dominion forward base in broad daylight, wearing eyeliner and torn denim with his sigil spray painted on their vests. In Berlin, scientists unlocked a Dominion power core and, instead of reporting it, built a pulse rifle that fires on hate alone. The world didn't rise as one army. It rose as a million maniacs who saw a single twink stand tall and realized they could do it too. But Riven wasn't organizing. He wasn't building. He was butchering. By the time the Resistance formed its first functional network node in Santiago, Riven had already hijacked a Dominion drop pod mid-descent and redirected it into a warcrawler's brain. Killed the general rank warlord by zip-tying 3 grenades to his own ribs and hugging him. Carved a warning into the side of a Cathal obelisk using nothing but his elbow and broken teeth. The warning read, "Leave or I make it rain spines." They didn't leave. He made it rain spines. By day 4 of the invasion, Dominion casualty logs were hemorrhaging red. 3,742 units dead. 98% of kills traced to a single biological anomaly, Riven. Fleet Admiral Keruthal, a century-old demigod of the warcast, sent an entire subcolony to New York. 10,000 troops. 30 hunters. 2 psychic overseers. They landed in Midtown. Riven met them alone. At first, the Dominion advanced like clockwork. Waves of death marching through the city, clearing buildings, vaporizing anything organic. The overseers twisted minds, turning civilians against each other in a fog of madness. But then the music started. Real music. Somehow, from somewhere, a sound system booted up. The streets filled with pounding synthwave. Bass like thunder. Vocals screaming in auto-tune fury. Musical note his glitter. His gore. His the twink knocking down your door. Musical note. The Dominion hesitated. Then Riven appeared, lit by strobes, soaked in firelight, blades spinning in both hands. He wore no shirt. Just blood. Just bruises. Just war. "You brought 1,000, he asked, head tilted. He cracked his knuckles. Cute. The battle wasn't a battle. It was an execution sequence. Riven was everywhere. A shadow. A blur. He danced through bullets, flipped through laser fire, screamed his rage into armored helmets, and then punched through them. He cut a hunter's head off using a signpost sharpened to a monomolecular edge. He rode a psychic overseer into a building like a surfboard. He exploded a fuel truck with his boot and walked out of the fire laughing. Buildings fell. Streets broke. Blood flooded Times Square. By the end, only Riven stood. And above it all, in orbit, the Dominion gods watched, trembling. Not from fear of Earth. From fear of what Oath had birthed. They realized too late, Riven wasn't the Resistance. He was retribution. They tried assassins. Didn't work. Riven ate one. They tried orbital nukes. Didn't work. He redirected them into the moon to spell nice TRY with the craters. They tried diplomacy. He pissed on their emissary and mailed their head back with a mixtape. They tried mimics, doppelgangers grown from stolen DNA. One lasted 5 minutes before Riven kissed it and whispered, "You're hot, but I'm hotter," and blew it to hell with a kiss-activated grenade. Nothing worked. Because he wasn't fighting for survival. He was fighting for the joy of destruction. Resistance radio cracked with a new code phrase every time he scored another cosmic kill. The sky just bled. He painted a warlord in his own spine. Glitter level, critical. Earth is not yours. A week into the invasion, Dominion Command issued the first full-scale retreat order in over 10,000 years. They didn't call it surrender. They called it containment protocol. Translation: flee and pretend it never happened. But it was too late. Riven had already sent a transmission to the entire galaxy. His face filled the stars. Eyes ringed in violet fire. Jaw bloody. Smile wide. He said 3 words. "I'm coming up." And above Earth, the Dominion flagship, the massive, pulsing Ketorak, trembled as alarms screamed through its halls. Because something had just boarded them. No shuttle. No breach pod. Just a twink with nothing left to lose. And far, far too much left to kill. No one understood how he got aboard the Ketorak. The Dominion flagship hovered in low orbit, shielded by atmospheric veils, psionic interference, and lead armor a kilometer thick. It was a moon-sized cathedral of war, home to the immortal warcast and their choir of planetary killers. No known vessel could pierce its defenses. But at 3:33 Greenwich Mean Time, a single anomaly tripped every alarm in the upper decks. No craft. No signal. Just a distortion. A pulse. A ripple in the air, as if the flagship had inhaled something it shouldn't have. And then, something started moving. Down the corridors. Up the walls. Through the metal. Riven Vale had arrived. He didn't come in guns blazing. He stalked like a wolf in velvet shadows. The first thing he killed was a high warden, 9 feet tall, cloaked in ceremonial armor made from dead suns. Riven took its head off with a Dominion prayer blade sharpened on oath concrete. The second thing he killed was the entire warden squad that came looking for it. He didn't use weapons for them. He used gravity. Rewired the corridor's artificial mass fields, slingshotting them into a pocket dimension of endless weight. Their screams folded in on themselves. "Nice ship," he muttered. "Shame about the interior design." He lit a flare. Sprayed veil walks across the walls in blood. Deck 7, the Neurocore. A place no Earthling had ever seen. Riven tore through it in 20 minutes. He bypassed the centrinodes with pure spite, rewired 2 alien consoles into a sonic cannon, and blasted a psionic priest brain so hard it liquefied the next 3 crew members via proximity. The walls pulsed red. The AI shrieked. Still, no one could locate him. He was everywhere and nowhere. The Dominion began to panic. Inside the command basilica, warlords screamed into holo chambers. Activate the anointed host. Initiate reverse quantum purge. Kill the lights. Maybe he can't see. None of it worked. By the time they reached consensus, he had already killed 2 choir captains and turned their spinal columns into a whip. He used it to strangle a phasing assassin mid-teleport. Too slow. On Deck 9, he found the incubation chambers, where Dominion birth pools grew warborn soldiers from flesh matter. Riven looked at the tanks. Watched the next generation squirming in translucent fluid. He gritted his teeth. Thought of Earth. Of what these things did to the kids in Brooklyn. To the women in New Delhi. To the streets of Rio. Then he burned every tank to ash. No rage. Just execution. At 4:10, the flagship lost internal comms. Riven had spliced the neurocortex into a recursive loop, flooding every channel with Earth music and kill footage. Now, from every terminal and comm bead, Dominion officers heard. Musical note, 1 man. 1 blade. 1 war you shouldn't have made, musical note. Musical note veil walks, musical note. Over. And over. And over again. Some went mad. Some self-terminated. None stopped him. On Deck 12, Riven met something new. Not a soldier. Not a machine. A godling. Dominion's failed attempt at synthetic divinity. All wings and code, flesh wrapped in screaming light. You are not sanctioned to ascend, it roared. Riven blinked, then kicked a void mine into its throat and whispered, I don't need your permission. The explosion turned half the deck into a crumpled crater. He climbed out of the wreckage grinning, half his body burned, one arm hanging by tendons. Didn't matter. He found a Dominion combat drug, crushed it into powder, and snorted it off the floor. His eyes went silver. His veins lit up. His teeth sparked when he grinned. 5 o'clock. They finally activated the Echo Guard, the last line of internal defense. 18 constructs made from harvested black holes and ancient war psalms. They found Riven in the throne atrium, drinking Dominion Ichor straight from a chalice he'd carved out of a psychic admiral's skull. Welcome, he said. I was getting thirsty. They attacked in unison. They died in pieces. Riven broke them with stolen tech, improvised explosives, and sheer audacity. At one point, he threw his own leg at one, then used the recoil to launch himself into another's eye socket. When the last one fell, he stood atop it, panting, bleeding, victorious. The Kitarak was silent now, except for the alarms, and the music, and the dripping. Riven walked toward the God Chamber, final layer of command. Doors 10 meters high, made of starbone, said to only open for the warlords of 9. Riven kicked them open. Inside, the Dominion Triumvirate, 3 war gods, each more ancient than Earth itself, cloaked in nebular robes, radiating raw power. They turned to him as one. You day. He shot one in the face with a bone dart launcher, before they could finish. I dare lot. They attacked. One launched a gravity well. He rolled through it, pulled its spine out through its stomach, and used it to trip the second. The second unleashed a soul-shred scream. Riven screamed louder, shattered its crystal skull with his forehead. The third begged, please. You don't know what you're inviting. Riven walked forward, bloody, limping, smiling. Yeah. He kicked the god down. Good. He stepped on its chest. Because I am the invitation. Then he drove a quantum blade through its heart and uploaded Earth's defiance directly into the Dominion network. The ship trembled. Its cord destabilized. The warlords were dead. The fleet, watching from orbit, screamed chaos. They tried to jump to hyperspace. Riven stopped them. Used the last of the neurocortex override to lock every ship in place. Then he activated the flagship's self-destruct. Final countdown, 3 minutes. He didn't run. He found the tallest point on the Kitarak, opened the ceiling hatch, and stood there, chest bare, cuts glowing, arms wide, as fire danced around him. The whole planet saw him. A twink with a death wish and a kill count higher than any war machine. He raised one hand, flipped the bird. Then the flagship exploded behind him in a billion pieces, lighting the sky like a second sun. Silence fell. And across the galaxy, every Dominion colony, every war council, every soldier, watched. And shook. Because Earth didn't surrender. Earth didn't negotiate. Earth sent him. The Dominion fleet shattered like brittle glass. Once the Kitarak detonated, their command lattice collapsed. Orders became screams. Tactical feeds drowned in static. Entire divisions blinked out of sync, turned their ships in wild spirals, or self-destructed out of protocol panic. The last Dominion admiral transmitted a single message across the network before silence consumed them. There is no countermeasure for him. We are prey. And then she walked into the void without her suit. On Earth, the sky bled fire and violet smoke. Shards of the flagship scorched the atmosphere, 1,000 comets streaking over every hemisphere. One piece landed in Siberia, still glowing, still humming. They say it burned a crater the shape of a crown. At first, there was no word, no signal, no sign. Riven Vale was gone. They mourned him like a god and a ghost. In New York, the survivors painted murals across the wreckage. His face lit by fire, one blade raised, the other hand dripping with Dominion blood. In Seoul, they carved his name into crystal monoliths made from repurposed alien armor. In Nairobi, they built a shrine entirely out of weapons he'd left behind, each one still warm, as if he might come back for them. They called him The one-man apocalypse. The blade in the glitter. Our final answer. Death in crop-top form. His name became sacred. His image outlawed in alien-controlled sectors. But the humans didn't forget. They couldn't. Because every second they breathed free air was a second he bled for. 3 weeks after the explosion, Earth scanners picked up a signal. Not from orbit. From deep below. Buried beneath Greenland's ice shelf, a Dominion cryopod, breached and smoking, pulsed with human biosign. When they cracked it open, the techs dropped to their knees. Inside, him. Naked. Unconscious. Burned. Scarred. Alive. Riven Vale. He didn't speak for days. Just stared at the ceiling. His fingers twitched in patterns no one could decipher, like he was still slicing through enemies in dreams. They tried to interview him. Thank him. Honor him. He ignored it all. Until they gave him a mirror. He looked at himself for one long minute. Then whispered, "I missed a spot." And smiled. But he wasn't whole. Not really. The Dominion had bled more than Ith. They'd bled him. He couldn't hear music without twitching. Couldn't look at the sky without reaching for a blade. Couldn't close his eyes without seeing fire behind them. They tried giving him peace. A farm. A therapist. A beach house somewhere in the Andes. He burned the house down on day 3 and walked barefoot into the mountains. The world moved on, but not away. Humanity was changed. They didn't rebuild the way they used to. No skyscrapers. No clean slates. They left the scars visible. Turned battlegrounds into memorials. Gutted Dominion tech into new machines, sharper and stranger. Taught their children how to aim plasma weapons before they learned multiplication. And in every classroom, one name stood at the top of the Liberation chapter. Riven Vale. But Riven didn't stay. Couldn't. He disappeared one morning, left behind nothing but a pair of blood-streaked boots and a scribbled note that read, "Going to see if there's more of them. If there is, they die. Don't wait up." The first confirmed sighting happened 2 years later on the fringe of Orion 4. A mining colony under siege sent out a panic beacon. The attackers weren't Dominion, they were worse. Raiders made from the remnants of shattered war empires. Psychotic scavengers with void-born hate and plasma axes. The signal reached Earth in 12 hours. Help would have taken 40. But by the time a patrol got there, the siege was over. All enemies dead. The miners alive. And carved into the steel wall of the command tower, 3 words. Vale was here. That became the pattern. A plague ship melting in orbit before it could infect a planet. No trace of how. A slave colony on a fringe asteroid freed overnight. The gods strung up with glitter-streaked ropes. A war broker cartel eradicated in a single night. All their servers overwritten with a music video starring Riven doing backflips with knives. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a myth that killed you. And soon, others followed. Not as strong. Not as fast. But inspired. Exiles. Scars. Twinks who didn't fit the old world, but fit perfectly in his wake. They called themselves the Glitterborn. They didn't wear uniforms. They wore attitude, eyeliner, scars, and war paint. And they didn't fight clean. They fought like Riven, fast, brutal, poetic, and loud. Wherever oppression raised a head, a Glitterborn squad popped it off with style. The galaxy changed. Alien empires started including clauses in their war doctrines. Avoid Earth-born anomalies at all cost. If one exhibits high-casualty behavior patterns, cease engagement. If he smiles before the strike, flee. They tried to bury the name. Tried to ban the songs. Didn't work. Because for every world they tried to silence, 10 more painted his face on their war banners. The Dominion never came back. Not because they couldn't. Because they wouldn't. Because the stars still echo with one memory. A boy with knives and glitter burned their gods alive. Years passed. The Earth grew steel wings and launched its first interstellar fleet. Not to conquer. To warn. Their first message in every tongue was the same. We don't want war. But if you bring it. He walks again. They still don't know where Riven is. Some say he died long ago, and the sightings are just copycats. Others say he transcended, became something between man and myth, hiding in hyperspace, waiting for another empire to get stupid. But there are still fresh reports. A warship ripped in half over Noggin 5, no blast residue. A prison barge emptied in 6 seconds. A surveillance drone picking up a silhouette in starlight. Lean, shirtless, grinning, eyes silver. And the last thing the camera ever saw? Him raising a finger to his lips. Shush. Because Rivenvale never wanted to be a hero. He was rage incarnate. Glitter with a death count. The soul of vengeance in the body of a blood-slicked angel. He didn't save the world because it deserved it. He saved it because they picked the wrong planet to fuck with. And the galaxy? It learned. It still remembers. Because somewhere, out there in the dark, the whisper still floats. Vale walks. Pray you're not in his way.